Aloha, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the COVID-19 Care Conversation. Thanks so much for joining us on this Wednesday. We've got a very special guest today, Ryan. Good morning, I'm Yunji Denise.
And I'm Ryan Kalesuji. We want to thank you all for tuning in here to the Honolulu Star Advertiser Facebook page. And as Yunji was saying, we have a very special guest joining us this morning. Dr. Christina Kishimoto, Hawaii's Superintendent, will be here to answer your questions. So we want to encourage all of you who are tuning in to please insert your questions in our comment section and share this video so that we can get as many questions as we can get as possible. We know that there's a lot of questions out there from parents as well as maybe some educators. And so it's our opportunity to get an update on what the DOE is doing amidst this COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, we want to give people a chance to join. We know the news alert just went on. So before we invite Dr. Kishimoto to join the live stream, we want to get to the count as we do every day, updating you with those numbers. As of noon yesterday, 13 new cases for a total of 517 positive cases. 9 deaths since the pandemic began in Hawaii. That is unchanged from the day before. Some good news, 333 patients, Ryan, have recovered since the start of the outbreak.
Yeah, and that's really great news and a number that officials want people to continue to look at is the number of people that are released from isolation, as well as hospital beds, which I believe remain at 44. So a number that is manageable within the healthcare profession here. Again, looking to keep those numbers down and prevent any sort of surge from happening. Some other big headlines coming through this morning includes a possible pay cut for state employees.
Yeah, our understanding that there is a proposal from the governor's office that would cut 20% pay for public workers. That, of course, does include teachers. That is to help offset what is expected to be basically a collapse of the state's tax collection with so many people going onto unemployment and with also just, so many businesses shut down. And then a 10% pay cut for first responders like firefighters, police officers, EMTs, and nurses. That, of course, is being met with a lot of confusion this morning and a lot of people upset about that. That is not something that is absolutely going into place as we understand it. We understand it as a proposal at this point, but it is definitely something that we need to talk about and we need to get some more answers on. A lot of you are parents, as we mentioned, and you are very interested in when your kids can get back to school. And so we want to invite our guest to join us right now. Dr. Kishimoto, thank you so much for being here. We know you are so busy. Let's get that first headline out of the way first, and that is your first reaction to the proposed pay cut for teachers.
So first, aloha, Yunji and Ryan, appreciate being on here and being part of the continued conversation we need to keep having on a daily basis as we are dealing with this pandemic and all of the impacts it's having, not just on education, but our families, our community, our healthcare workers, and so forth. Yes, so we are, alerted to the need to revisit our state budget, and certainly the Department of Education as a large government agency that relies on the state budget is going to be looking at what this impact is going to mean for us. I will say that we're early in this. We haven't received guidance yet, so we are awaiting guidance from Budget and Finance Office. That's typically how it works. We do know that the rest of the school year, which goes through May 28th, and our summer school planning, we will continue with that, and we don't expect any interruption to this current year or to the summer plan.
Okay, we want to get straight to this proposal that came out recently, which was this 4-week guideline that we would have 4 weeks with no new cases until schools could reopen. Is that still the standard? And if that is the standard, when do you expect us to actually be able to get kids back into schools?
So it's actually not the standard. We had a document we've had in place now for almost 2 months that is an internal document that speaks to how we're planning through this pandemic. When we started inputting information about how schools should respond to grading policies and the new waiver that the Board of Education provided me to look at graduation requirements, we knew a lot of that section of the internal planning document was of interest to the public. So we were we're glad to share the entire internal document with the public. Unfortunately, the public is not able to fully understand what parts of that document are general guidance for us to keep thinking about. And so that section about the 4 weeks was just the early information CDC provided schools across the nation to think about. It was not necessarily guidance that we were using. So we have now removed that from that document so we won't create confusion. We have been clear about the fact that we are in a continuity of learning format, which means our buildings are closed and we're doing instruction differently through April 30th. And actually at the end of this week, we'll finish our planning for what the rest of the school year, which is through May 28th, is going to look like. And so we'll be issuing that next level of guidance around the rest of the school year post April 30th.
Okay, great. I just want to check into, we want to encourage people who may be watching to enter their comments right now. We haven't seen any, so I just want to make sure that we normally will have a few comments from now.
Yeah,
so,
and actually we are having a lot, Ryan, but I think we're having an issue with the Be Live system.
Yeah,
so I'm actually seeing them on my phone, but not in this is a limit of the technology. So I'll just read some here. A lot of people are just wondering when you actually anticipate, if it's not that 4-week standard, do you think that school is going to be dismissed for the rest of the year, that we continue this distance learning, if you will, or is there a date that you are looking at when you can anticipate kids being back?
So we actually have promised the community 2 things. One is that by today, we would talk about our commencement schedule. And by Friday, we would provide information about the rest of the school year. So in terms of the commencement schedule, we are issuing information internally that also I can certainly share now. We are not going to do any traditional graduation or commencement ceremonies. We were hoping to look at things like, can we delay into future months, have kids come back in the summer and do the traditional ceremony? There just isn't enough clarity about the impact of COVID-19 on continued closures. And in conversation with the mayors, the governor, and other leaders statewide, we think that we should go ahead, have an alternative celebration during the latter half of May, which is when we would have had commencement ceremony. So each principal or high school principal will actually be issuing next week the date of their celebration, how they're going to do that. Many of them are looking at technology to do those celebrations, looking at ways that we can post information that we're celebrating about each graduate. We have over 11,000 graduates this year. We're very proud. This is one of our largest graduating class in the last several years. And so we do want to celebrate with them. We know that, parents are used to the lays and the dinners and the, celebrations out in parking lots. And that's all wonderful. And we really are heartbroken that we're not going to be able to do it that way, but we are going to do something special for each high school.
So would that be something like a Zoom graduation? I mean, what does that actually look like?
So we're looking at everything from, and the high schools are each defining the way in which they're going to do this. I wanted to give them as much leeway as possible within the safety guidelines that I've given them. So they're talking about things like an e-conferencing, like a WebEx or Zoom or any of those kind of e-conferencing sites as a way to have a celebration via technology. The smaller high schools are looking at ways in which they can do something like we saw churches.
Okay, we may have some problems here, so
there we go. Okay, let's pick up right where you were. So you said the smaller high schools might be doing something along the lines of churches. Is that like a drive-through kind of a thing?
Yes, so potentially a drive-through, as long as they meet the health and safety guidelines and the which requires social distancing. There are different ways in which they're looking at those celebration options. So we're excited that we're going to do something for each high school and all of our kids rather than say we're just going to cancel commencement. None of us had the heart to be able to say we wanted to cancel commencement. We have to celebrate, 13 years, kindergarten to 12th grade, this education experience that our kids have had and the tremendous success that they have as they meet this commencement milestone.
Are you changing any of the requirements so that students are actually able to graduate? Or are we expecting the same number as, perhaps started in January, that we're on track to graduate will actually graduate given the limitations of the distance learning?
What we're doing is adding additional access points for students who were not on track by the end of third quarter when we went into spring break. We're providing them extended learning opportunities. So we will have additional time beyond May 28th for our students to complete graduation requirements all the way through July 28th in order to be part of this year's graduating class. So we're actually adding opportunities to make sure that our students get supported by their teachers and know exactly what they have to complete in order to graduate.
Have you guys begun looking at when school resumes and when businesses start opening up again? We've heard from the mayor and from the governor how they're looking at potentially phasing things in by maybe different industries. What would that look like for the schools? Because we know that parents are, the schools play a large part because parents necessarily can't go to work if their kids are still at home, that they have to stay home and watch them. So how much coordination is there going to be with the state to make sure that when parents are going to work, that schools are also available at the same time?
So the Department of Education and I myself am part of weekly conversations with the governor and his team, certainly interacting with the mayors around their decisions at the county level as well. We know that we have to coordinate because if the DOE opens before business and industry does some kind of staggered opening, then that also raises concerns. We're all looking at Department of Health guidance. We also know that as soon as families can go back to more traditional work settings, that they need the schools to be open. So we are coordinating together. We are looking at ways in which we can stagger opening for which groups of students, how that occurs. Once we start staggering opening, it's a little different for the Department of Ed because then all of our services have to be in place. Our school buses have to be running. Our food services have to switch from the grab and go to actually back into the cafeteria. We also have to make sure that support services are in place. We have nurses that serve our schools, and so our nurses would go from telework to now being back in school buildings. It's a very complex layering of services, and so we are planning each of those components as we go along.
Are you hoping that there will be summer school, or are you just sort of trying to plan now for fall?
Oh no, I'm absolutely committed to having summer school. All of us are ready to go. We've had discussions with the governor as well about what our summer school plans are. We have to ensure, one, that all of our seniors have the opportunity for additional time if they need additional time to graduate. We also need to make sure all of our students, kindergarten through 12th grade or kindergarten through 11th grade, have the opportunity to finish up their requirements so they can promote. We don't want any student harmed by the fact that we've had to deal with this health crisis. We just have to deliver services and instruction differently.
What about the idea of all these students who are, little imitation of the medium there. What about all these students who might be left out when it comes to digital access? We see a lot of stuff about kids doing Zoom conferences and being able to participate, but of course not everybody has a computer, not everybody has reliable internet. So how are you making sure that it's equal across the board regardless of the students' resources?
So there's a lot of things have been put in place. We are doing instruction using technology to an extent that we never have. And I'm very proud of that. I think everyone has worked really hard to make that happen. That includes teachers who have been part of training on how to teach online. And so they're doing that while they're also teaching. And so really am proud of my 13,000 teachers who have stepped up in that way as well. Our principals are coordinating that. We've done instructional packets for those families who have said they don't have access to technology or they don't want to receive a device from the school because they feel they can't manage, for example, multiple kids who are in the public school system. We've had families who say, I have 5 kids in the public school system. I can't handle technology for all 5 of them. Can I have, packets for the younger ones and technology for the older ones? And so families are part of that decision making. We've actually issued and loaned out over 12,000 devices, and that's been through the school level when families have requested it, primarily for the secondary schools. The work that we're doing now is making sure that every senior that needs an extended learning year to finish graduation requirements or have access to technology. We also have services for very targeted students, students who are in foster care, students who have housing security issues. We have a team that's dedicated just to them, to either network them through technology and hotspots or to get services to them more in person with a dedicated team that has that security clearance to work with those children individually.
You know, we've been told that that life is going to be different, that social distancing is going to be a part of how we operate on a daily basis going forward. Given the constraints on the public school system, I mean, we already have teachers that are dealing with very large classrooms. How do you actually implement that? How is school, once it is open, how is school going to look different? What do we expect to keep and what do we expect to lose? Will there be team sports, for instance? Do all students have to wear a mask? I mean, there are a litany of questions as to how this actually comes to be when, in fact, the schools can reopen.
So one of our approaches has been to take decision making in basically 4-week chunks and not to jump ahead. And the reason we don't want to jump ahead is as much as we can normalize and provide full instruction, full services, full opportunities, we want to be able to go back to those opportunities as quickly as possible. At the same time that I'm saying that, I'm also saying that the crisis has given us the opportunity to innovate in new ways. And there are some things that I don't want to go back to that may have been considered normal before. We have the opportunity now to extend online learning and blended learning in a way that we never have. Because the crisis forced us into that learning mode. And so we're going to do that. The other piece is we're looking at, and with the CARES Act funding that the department is going to be receiving, we have $43 million of federal funding for COVID impacts specific for the Department of Education. Not only is that helping to fund our summer school program, which will also provide relief on the state dollars that will also be used to provide greater internet and technology access for our hardest to reach areas. And so that's something that we are absolutely dedicated to ensuring. So in that sense, there are some things that will go back to normal and there's some things that we're going to do different and better as a result of this.
You know, we're getting a lot of questions that are coming in, so I want to just try to address as many as that we can. A lot of questions are still coming in about summer school. I think that there is just a little confusion. Is the summer school intended for people that are students that are needing credits to graduate, or is it going to be open for all? And what would summer school, I guess, look like? So
there are two parts to summer school. Traditionally, there's the opportunity for students who have fallen behind to catch up. For the upper grade students, that's really about credit recovery. For the lower grade students, that's about making sure their math and reading skills are at or above grade level. And so those are that's a very targeted part of summer school. We are going to be rolling out a statewide credit recovery approach. So our secondary students can do their summer school credit recovery online. And we're going to have that coordinated effort across the entire state. Usually is run by individual schools. We are going to be contracting to have a rollout statewide that's going to simplify access and opportunity for our students who are behind. The other part that we're going to be running is what's called eSchool. We have an eSchool system that allows students to get ahead on their credits. And so students who want to take credits ahead of schedule at the high school level, they'll be able to sign on to those eSchool courses online this summer and go ahead and continue to advance through their program.
We had another question also coming in about multi-track schooling, those schools that participate in that. What does that look like with some of them, you know, presumably starting earlier than other schools? What kind of adjustments will need to be made to those schools that are on the multi-track system?
So we only have 5 schools that are who are impacted by block scheduling, and then we have several schools that are impacted by multi-track schedule. And so those schools are meeting separately so that as we roll out guidance, we also roll out what that means for those schools. For our block schedule schools, for example, some of them are taking original credit on the 4th quarter because they have a block schedule time to do that. And so they are are going ahead and doing that e-learning so that those students can accomplish those credits and not fall behind, if, as they promote into next school year, or they don't get delayed in graduating. For those who are in multi-track schedules, we're looking at the adjustment for the start of next school year and what impact there will be to that. We'll have that guidance coming forth as we keep looking at what's going to happen in May and in June.
Okay, and for folks who are joining the stream a little late, I do want to make sure that everyone is caught up. There were two key deadlines that you were saying that were coming up for information. We were talking about graduation and then the start of school. Can you repeat those for people who are joining us a little bit late?
So for graduation, we are replacing commencement ceremonies, the traditional commencement ceremonies, with alternative ceremonies using the same general schedule for the second half of May when we would have been doing those celebrations. We'll use multiple means, including e-conferencing, and for the smaller schools, opportunities to do some kind of drive-through opportunities to pick up, take a photo and pick up a diploma and so forth. So those schedules will be rolled out next week by each of the schools, and we'll have a master schedule that we'll post on our website by the end of next week. This Friday, I'll be hosting a meeting with the media, a media event to talk about what the rest of the school year looks like and what the summer schedule looks like. And so we are right now, we've been meeting all day yesterday, we're meeting all day today, we're finalizing this for tomorrow, and then we'll have a press conference on Friday to roll out what happens after April 30th.
One of the other questions that we saw come in were just parents that are concerned about just the overall level of their child and what they've learned and what they're maybe supposed to learn this year, and moving on too quickly. Maybe, some of them are saying that they're not sure that their child is ready to move on to the next grade because they've missed out so much in this calendar year. Is there any efforts that are going to be made on the curriculum base to make sure that the students that are advancing and going to the next grade have the adequate tools and are equipped with that standard learning that is expected of them in that age?
So at the point that we transitioned from our summer schedule into the 2021 school year, we will have all of our teachers doing transition planning with their students as they come back. Because the fact is that there has been, we know that not everyone has had the same level of engagement. Not everyone has had and taken full advantage of all the opportunities afforded. And that's for a variety of reasons. And if the kids get sick or parents get sick or family members get sick, that interrupts, and we acknowledge that. So our teachers are reaching out now. They're doing the maximum instruction as they can do. We have some exciting things happen. We have students submitting projects online. We have students going to school online. So we'll continue to do that. But the transition into next year is going to require starting the school year with teachers taking an assessment of where students are starting, who needs additional supports, and providing those additional supports and transitions.
We know that you have to go shortly, but before you do, we just also want to give you an opportunity to tell everybody about the opportunity to get food from through the Department of Education. How has that grab and go meal program been working? How many families or how many students have you been feeding, on a daily or a weekly basis?
So very exciting and very successful. We have about 66 school sites right now. Our goal was to be at about 70, and so we're just about there. We are providing just over 90,000 meals a day. The goal is to provide food to kids who show up who are 18 years of age or younger, and so we're not asking which school they attend. We are feeding private, public school students equally. What we want to do is meet the food security needs of our children, and that's our goal. And so we'll continue to do that. At the point that school buildings are open, we'll transition back into the cafeterias and then have feeding across all schools throughout the state.
Okay, well, Dr. Kishimoto, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. We know that there were a lot of questions out there, and I think a lot of people were able to, great to hear some firsthand information that you presented here. So we appreciate you taking time to be here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Stay healthy.
Wow, Ryan. Well, some big news there. Two major takeaways. And we know that there were a lot of questions today, and we are going to invite Dr. Kishimoto to come back in a week or two to answer more of your questions, because this is a wonderful resource. This is, a two-way street, really, where you get to ask your questions and we get to ask them directly to those who are in charge. No traditional graduations this year for Hawaii Public Schools. That is a big, big adjustment. We could see some drive-through graduations. Each school, as she said, each principal is going to have to make a decision for their school district or for their school and their school community as to what is appropriate and what is safe. So that's a big one. And the other one is that 4-week standard that was in that 30-page DOE document is simply a guideline that was presented to the DOE and not something that the DOE is mandating or sticking schools open. I know a lot of parents are probably relieved by that, because the idea of 4 weeks with no new cases is an extremely high bar. And a lot of folks were very worried that schools, might not even reopen in the fall. We heard her say she's hoping for summer school. So a lot of news there.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things is that they recognize the coordination that has to happen. I know that there were a lot of parents that were commenting in our comments about saying if they have to go back to work, but they're responsible for their children, they recognize that there's an effort being made to coordinate when schools open, that everybody is trying to work together. And again, we know that there were a lot of comments as well about the headlines that were coming through today about the 20% potential proposed 20% cut to state employees. She sort of addressed that right off the top. So if you missed this or came in late, we want to encourage you to go on back and watch this interview again, because she did talk a little bit about that. And again, how they are waiting to receive more information as this information is just coming out. And again, it is just a proposal that the administration has made.
Yeah, and you'll be able to ask your questions directly to a member of the administration. Lieutenant Governor Josh Green is joining us tomorrow. So I'm sure we will be talking about that among a variety of headlines. Speaking of headlines, we want to get to a little bit of other news. There is so much when it comes to this pandemic. Mayor Honolulu Mayor Kirk Caldwell issuing a new rule starting Monday that face masks must be worn in public for anyone who is conducting a business transaction. Those are non-surgical face masks. They don't want you to waste PPE, but they want you to wear those fabric face masks. So you are required to wear a non-surgical mask starting Monday if you're doing any kind of business other than banking. That's the one area where he says, obviously, you don't need to be wearing one. The penalty, if you are not compliant with this, is a $5,000 fine or a year in jail. So this is added to that stay-at-home order. It now is part of it. A pretty strict rule, Ryan.
Yeah, and again, there were talks about people getting access to masks and people being able to get those masks available. We actually want to highlight an organization that is helping people to do just that. There is everyone. Hawaii is really trying to help to fill that void of providing masks to people who may need it, and are encouraging people to head over to their website for people to sign up to get those masks.
Yeah, everyonehawaii.com, and the O, in one is replaced with the number 1. We have the number in the website in the show notes as well here in the description. You can sign up there to get a free face mask if you are not in a position either to make one or you can't afford to buy one. This organization is committed to making sure that everyone does have access. So head on over to their website, fill out a form, very easy, and you can make sure that you can get a face mask to protect yourself and your family. If you are in a position to buy one or you want to find out where you can get one, Nina Wu has a great article in today's paper. It's a list that she continues to update on where to purchase or find a face mask in Hawaii. Just bookmark that site because she's updating it all the time with new retailers or community organizations that are making those available.
That's right. So again, we want to spotlight everyone Hawaii. They not only are making masks, but they're also our Hawaii hero of the day. So we want to thank them and the efforts that are being made by the organization to really fill that gap and make sure that we are all equipped with masks and making sure that everyone has that. So again, want to encourage you guys to head on over, everyone Hawaii with the number 1 instead of O-N-E.
Sorry, go ahead.
We also want to highlight again, coming up tomorrow, Lieutenant Governor Josh Green will be here taking your questions. And then we also have Britt Young that will be coming on Friday to talk a little bit more about how this is impacting families as well as marriages and relationships, to give us some insights, some tips about how to manage that. So a lot to look forward to this coming up this week.
Yeah, stress level is high, and so we've asked her to come on. She's a marriage and family counselor, a therapist who can help us all deal with the stress. We all love our families, but it's a lot to be locked inside with them for weeks at a time, and all the financial stresses that everyone is experiencing, and just, the worries about health and whatnot. So we've asked her to come on Friday to help us handle, just the everyday stress of this pandemic. And again, Lieutenant Governor Josh Green is coming up tomorrow. We also want to highlight this. This is alohatrace.org. This is a community-driven data collection. It's to try to figure out community spread. It's that community tracing effort. It takes 2 minutes or less to fill out this survey, and they really want everyone to fill this out daily. So just go to alohatrace.org, and that way we can identify the hot spots, and we can try to figure out where COVID is in our communities so that those people can quarantine, isolate, get the help they need medically, and so that we can get rid of this disease and get back to our lives as they once were.
Yeah, and another way that you can get involved, actually, there was a call out yesterday during Governor Ige's press conference by the Hawaii Healthcare Association asking for retirees, those who are in the medical field that have sort of stepped away, if they'd be interested in coming back to volunteer. Not only for those who have experience in the medical field, but anyone who wants to maybe volunteer on the front lines, be it if you have medical experience or not. They are sort of accumulating a list of volunteers in case there is a second wave or surge that comes on. I want to encourage you, you can also sign up for that under coronavirushawaii.com. How you can get involved. There's a link there that has a specific sign up where you can sign up if you would like to get involved or more information or get on that list. And we will provide that list over to the department to make sure that they have those names if you would like to get involved and help and be a volunteer on the front lines.
We thank you so much for watching today. Please share this this post with your friends, and especially parents or educators who might be interested in hearing directly for the superintendent. Very rare to have her come on and talk for that length of time. So we really want to encourage you to share this video, like it, comment, let us know who you want to hear from next. Again, Lieutenant Governor Josh Green joins us tomorrow. So we will see you tomorrow back here at 10:30. And until then, please stay safe.
Aloha.